Thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to discuss best practices for NGLCC Matchmakers today. Joining us on the call is Sam Lehman, Principal of LGBTBE Columbia Consulting Group. And we're also going to have Ellis Savage, who's the Supplier Diversity and Inclusion Manager of Toyota Financial Services, which is, of course, one of NGLCC's corporate partners and a participant in the Matchmakers this year. And kind of the purpose of the call is to make sure that everyone's properly equipped for the Matchmaker meetings. The Matchmaker meetings are a really crucial opportunity to connect with potential corporate clients, not only for contracting opportunities, but for coaching, for development, advice, and for kind of getting that really crucial business intelligence for putting yourself on a path to be doing business with NGLCC's corporate partners. As you know from interacting with the system and My Business Matches, the meetings are based on corporate buyers' best knowledge that there are actual opportunities with your company, so the meetings are very valuable. It's really crucial to put your best foot forward and make the most of your time. You want to communicate your company's story and your core strengths effectively and really take the opportunity to begin building that authentic relationship. So as I mentioned, we're going to have two perspectives on the call today, one from the LGBTBE side on, from Sam and how he prepares for the meetings, and then we're going to hear from Toyota Financial Services about what they expect and how from their perspective you can really be effective in the meeting. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Sam to talk a little bit about his experience with NGLCC Matchmakers and how suppliers can prepare to put their best foot forward and make an impact.
Okay. Well, thank you, Phil. I appreciate participating in the call. It's such a quick process. The first thing we have to do is sort of envision ourselves in Ellis's seat. So, it's important to realize that whoever we're sitting across from may have done repetitive interviews time after time after time. So we have to be sensitive to trying to be a tad different because it can be difficult to be sitting on the other side of our interview. So, obviously we have to know that more or less the Chief Diversity Officer or diversity representative is a liaison. That's typically not your end contact. So, we don't need to sell the diversity end of it, but what we need to do is put up a very concise, quick biography of our company and why they should be interested in moving us forward. And typically that's how it works. Not in every case, but in most cases, the Chief Diversity Officer could recommend a supplier to procurement, and procurement can take it from there and then ultimately push the vendor off to the ultimate decision maker, whatever that department is. So if you realize the role of the diversity representative isn't to the end result, but more or less to act to push you through the process. And once we realize that, you can get your talk track sort of in line with that scenario. Once you've established what your company does and how you could benefit that organization, a couple quick questions for them to help you guide yourself along is, are there lists? Are there, first of all, you have to be registered with that organization. That's sort of a no-brainer. But, does that organization have a Tier 1 suppliers list? And if that is, how would a supplier or vendor get on that list? And typically the diversity representative can guide you through that. You would maybe need, maybe they have a 2-year window where they reevaluate suppliers every 2 years. But that type of knowledge is really important because you can go back from that Matchmakers meeting and set your plan of action down the road. And when our suppliers reevaluated, current suppliers, a couple of questions is, if it's a large organization, is procurement the central contact, or are you allowed to talk to the Los Angeles office if that's where you're headquarters are. So maybe different divisions can work on their own, and that's something that the Chief Diversity Officer typically would know. Is it a central procurement? And all of that can help you guide yourself to your plan once you leave the Matchmaker session and establish your sort of roadmap to ingraining yourself into the procurement division in that company. And also when do RFPs come out? That's a valid question that they could typically answer. Most organizations, it's yearly or every other year, but that will again help you sort of get your war chest ready for that company as far as your plan of action. And sometimes suppliers are able to reach out to department heads on their own. Sometimes they're not, and that's a valid question as well. Am I allowed to talk to the head of marketing, or do I have to go through procurement? Some companies allow that and some don't, but that can the diversity representative typically would have that information and guide you through that, and that will be another area that you could start planning for how you're going to market yourselves to that company.
Awesome. So thank you, Sam. I think that's a really important foundation for, the ways in which suppliers can prepare themselves for the meeting. I also wanted to introduce Ellis Savage. As I said, Ellis is the Supplier Diversity and Inclusion Manager at Toyota Financial Services. He'll be participating in the Matchmaker meetings. And Ellis, if you wanted to go ahead and take a few minutes to kind of lay the groundwork for the expectation from the corporate buyer side.
Well, again, thank you, Phil. I appreciate the opportunity to be on this call. Anything we can do at Toyota Financial Services, TEMA or TMS, all of our affiliates, to help our diverse suppliers get in our chain, we are total advocates of that. With that said, at TFS right now, and for those who I have set up meetings with Matchmakers, I think my schedule is full right now. Just a heads up for some things that we are looking at right now, open RFPs that are in place. So if you have your pens, please feel free to write this down. We're looking for some sales development training. We're looking at our core receivables, which is a new platform for our inbound customer service agents. We're looking for design and build suppliers who can help us out in that particular area. We're also looking for a third-party audit group for our collections, our third-party collections suppliers, to ensure that they are within our compliance of our SOPs. We're right now looking for what we call a TFS volunteer portal. In other words, we ask our employees to spend time doing volunteer work in the community. With doing voluntary work in the community, after they attain so many hours, they actually can earn funds to be donated to that particular organization, as long as it's a 301c. And then finally, if we have any lawyers out there, we're looking for a litigation network that can do nationwide to help us in our collection process and replevins and a number of things related to that. So we have right now 5 opportunities that I am in the market of searching for. So hopefully, I think I've connected up with a number of people, a number of different suppliers, and hopefully we can connect and at least get the process started. When it comes to, what we do as a company, I will tell you the key is, particularly in Matchmakers, is just be prepared. Really, you have about 15 minutes to sell yourself, but come prepared with questions so you can hopefully get a better insight on exactly what the company is looking for. But in that 15 minutes, definitely make sure that you're hitting your strong points because you only have a short time to get that sales pitch in. I will tell you, just from past experiences, if you're there with a joint venture, make sure that you're on the same page. I've been in Matchmaker sessions that we thought we had a pretty good fit, but then there was a joint venture and it kind of got off track. You didn't know what company was selling what. So that's not a good thing to do if you're going in with a joint venture as well. Really be prepared with your capability statements. At TFS, we are looking to get into a mentoring program. I know there's a NGLCC mentoring program that's being worked on. I will be observing that on Friday morning, but some of the key initiatives that we're looking at is really to make sure that suppliers have quality capability statements as well as their presentation. We're looking for business etiquette. We've been in situations where, again, folks, the suppliers who are presenting themselves just aren't professional, and we're hoping to work with folks there. With Toyota financial statement, really your financial data counts. In other words, you really need to have your financial documents in order. TFS is a very risk-averse company. And if you get through the process, there's a really in-depth scrub that we do to make sure that if you're a high-risk company, that we're making sure that, whether we can do business with you or not, it's going to be crucial. So make sure your financial documents are ready and in place and in order. The other thing is, the registries. I heard Sam say earlier, we'll have a document there for TFS. I'm also trying to work with our affiliates, TEMA and TMS, to be able to get you the ability to register in their portals. That's the first step you really do have to take. So once we get there, make sure you are registering in those portals. And finally, your performance metrics. Make sure they're clear and they say who you are and what you can actually do. I would tell you guys, Phil said it earlier, Sam said it as well. Sometimes we're the biggest advocates. The supply diversity managers are the biggest advocates for our suppliers to get in the door. But there are barriers there. And it's hard for us to overcome those barriers. I know there's a session about that at the conference next week. So the more you're prepared and the more you have everything ready, it helps us break down those barriers because all we want to do is get you in front of those decision makers. And once we can get you in front of those decision makers, I'm always a true believer, your abilities and your self-worth will really rise up to the top and make you the person that we need to give that opportunity to. My job is to constantly go in with these decision makers and let them understand, open up your eyes and see what other opportunity, what other suppliers are out there. They may be able to do it faster, quicker, smarter, and at a better cost. And I can tell you I'm pushing costs because we are always looking at our OPEX, our operating expenses. So if you can do it faster, quicker, smarter, and a better cost, that always helps the procurement group as well as far as making decisions and stuff. So those are some of the things I can tell you. We can do a better job of giving feedback to the suppliers. That is something I know I'm working on at TFS. It's really non-existent right now. But there's nothing like getting the opportunity to even submit or be a part of an RFP and then really don't get good feedback as to what happened if you're not successful. I'm working very hard, and I know my counterparts at TEMA and TMS are working very hard at making sure that we have a feedback program in place so that we can help you get better so the next time it comes around, we can help you hopefully get that contract. We are here to increase our diverse supplier pool. And everyone that you're going to meet next week at Matchmakers, that's their goal. So we're clearly advocates for you, and anything that we can possibly do to help you out, we will definitely do that.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Alice. You know, and I think that's an important point, is to remember that the supplier diversity professionals that the NGLCC is working with and that we're connecting you with are a resource for you in many ways, and you want to put your best foot forward with them, and you want to build the best case you can, but they're also there to give you constructive feedback, and also as a resource for, you know, different channels of supplier development, like the mentorship program. So that's another thing that you might want to ask, in addition to, you know, what specific procurement opportunities are coming up, but what kinds of supplier development resources the companies you're meeting with have to offer. Because that's a really high goal for a lot of our corporate partners, is to develop that talent pool. One thing that I also wanted to ask, that I think some of our suppliers sometimes, maybe it's a little bit confusing, but around best practices for following up after the meeting. So maybe, Sam, starting with you, what have you found is most effective in terms of how you message after a meeting, frequency, things of that nature that get kind of the best traction?
Well, again, I try to put myself, you know, on the other side of the phone, and you know, I would never want to come off as annoying or just inundating anyone with emails or you know, phone calls. What I have is I have a 4-step process where I try to touch base 4 times a year in several different methods, either a letter, phone call, or email to the diversity contact, and that is you know, that is not inundating anyone, but that's, you know, maybe checking back once a quarter. But you know, it is real important, because like Toyota is one of those companies that is very complex, and one of the things that suppliers like to get an idea of is, does the diversity department speak for all facets of Toyota, or do they each have their own independent? So, you know, as we go along, that's always interesting to know, and typically, Alice, you'll be able to answer that. Does procurement speak for all different organizations, or some independent? So having that information is always great to have, but I mean, to answer your question, I'd say about once a quarter is somewhat appropriate for trying to stay in touch with your contact.
You know, Sam, I would agree with you. Just to get back to the Toyota question, Toyota is very complex. There are actually 3 separate entities. The manufacturing division they have their own procurement group. The marketing division, they have their own procurement group. And Toyota Financial Services, they have their own procurement group as well. So when you're talking about that, you really do need to make sure you're really selling your business to the right Toyota division. And what we do a lot of times is, particularly at Matchmakers or at a business expo, if we see that there are opportunities that our affiliates can use, we grab that information and point that supplier to those affiliates. So we're always working together as one Toyota, but to Sam's point, it is 3 separate divisions, 3 separate portals, 3 separate makeups, and we're all, matter of fact, we're all trying to get it to one. but right now it is 3 separate ones. As far as follow-up, I am a group of one, so it makes it pretty tough to follow up. But I tell you, I make an effort every time someone sends something to me, every time someone calls me, I make an effort to get back with them. I don't have too many people who would say I don't. It takes a lot on me, but I have the passion, and I know you have the desire to grow your business. But that's me. I can't say that's the same with everyone. So I think with Sam, his recommendation is probably pretty solid. But once you get to know who your supplier diversity advocate is, then you'll get to know who that person is and how they react. Some have a stronger passion that they want everyone to be successful, and others will tell you, to Phil's point earlier, I will call you, don't you call me. But at the end of the day, it's still up to you to put your best foot forward. And if that advocate has any worth, they'll do everything they possibly can to help you, as well as follow up with you to make sure that you know where you're standing.
Mhm. Yeah, and what every buyer is different. And it's very much okay to ask, what is, for your company, your bandwidth, for the size of your team, how often should I follow up? I would think after the initial meeting, you're going to want to follow up with all the people that you met with, not just at Matchmakers, but across the conference, within a week, just to have that initial contact. And it's always a good idea to make sure, don't assume that people, or this is the feedback that we've gotten from a lot of our other partners, don't assume that they remember you. Remember, they've met hundreds of people. They'll have a better chance of remembering you if it's fresh, but try to just remind them of who you are, very, very briefly, who you are, what you do. If there was anything specific that you talked about that might be kind of a hook for jogging their memory, and then just asking how frequently they prefer to be contacted, and just keep a record of that, because they'll generally, supplier diversity people will tell you how often they would prefer to be contacted.
That is correct.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take us off lecture mode. If anyone in the audience has any questions for Sam or for Ellis, you can go ahead and ask, so we can continue the discussion and just make sure that everyone is as prepared as they can be. So just if you have any noise in the background, if you're at some kind of concert or performance at the moment, just put your phone on mute so everyone can hear and get their questions in. Okay. Does anyone participating have any questions?
I do. This is Mark Morales, and I'm with Charles Jacobson, Inc., and we are an Asian antique importer. And I kind of have two questions. One is we've worked through setting up with hotels and with the movie people, NBC Universal, some appointments. But my question is, for those of you that are looking to buy, if we've sold to you in the past prior to us getting our certification, how do we go about working with you to either get those dollars recognized in the same year and or to the right person? And then the second question is, if we're a second-tier supplier, I haven't heard a lot about that, and that is because we sell to the interior designer that then sells to your company that either redesigns your offices or, for the hotels, redesigns their hotels. How does that work?
It's an excellent question, and I'm sitting here looking at my notes, and I really did want to, as far as success stories, talk about Tier 2 suppliers as well. Just recently got about 5 Tier 1, normally Tier 1 suppliers align with one of our Tier 1 major suppliers and set them up as in the area of Tier 2. There is an opportunity exchange, a Toyota opportunity exchange that happens in Cincinnati in late October. I think the dates are October 25th, 26th, which is geared just for Tier 2 suppliers. In other words, Toyota, particularly TEMA, brings in all of their Tier 1 suppliers, and the whole purpose is to provide business and opportunity to Tier 2 suppliers. So that is something that we are all doing effective this year. Toyota Financial Services will be capturing Tier 2 spend. So that is a huge emphasis as well. But that's something you should put on your calendars. And if when you see me next week at the Market Expo or Matchmakers, we can talk more in depth. But that is the Toyota Opportunity Exchange. I think it's October 25th, 26th, in Cincinnati, Ohio. It is free to get in. You have to get there on your own, but it's a great opportunity to be a part of a Tier 2 program with Toyota. As far as the first part, spend dollars, at least at TFS, if you were not certified in the past, then TFS cannot count those spend dollars to our bottom line diversity number. The day you become certified, from that day after, as long as you're in good standing, then we can capture that spend in that way. Does that answer the question that you had?
Absolutely. That's very helpful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anything prior to certification, and that's why it's so important to be certified. I tell folks all the time that, when I am really successful in this business is when I can put myself out of work because they no longer need a supplier diversity manager. Suppliers can make that on their own. But until we break down all of those barriers, your certification truly elevates you above a non-certified supplier because we're all looking to get that spend dollar to make our goals, to improve our relationship and our standing in the community and how we help our community grow. So certification is key, but we cannot count those spend dollars until you are certified. And we, even if you stop, we must stop at that time period. So it's not only being certified, but keeping your certification in good standing.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you touched on, or that's kind of related to that. So in terms of the certification, obviously certification is very important to us. It's important to the supplier diversity managers. It's important to the organizations that are partnering with us. You need to be kind of thoughtful, and I think this is a little bit of an area of confusion for some LGBTBEs in terms of how much you want to put the weight on that. So, for example, when you have your Matchmaker meetings, you're probably not going to want to really talk a lot about your certification at that meeting because that's kind of a given. They understand that they're meeting with LGBTBEs. And you always need to you understand that certification is giving you an edge, but always make sure that you're staying focused on the fact that you are still the best company for the job, that you still have, you're the person that can deliver that unique solution. And especially as you're navigating through the channels of an organization and moving past supplier diversity into procurement, into the categories, it's good to have the certification logo on your email or to mention it at the end, but to not come across as though that's kind of, it's giving you an edge, but maybe, not presenting the fact that you think it's going to give you an edge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do.
Phil, it's almost like a mountain event where at the beginning with the diversity manager is probably limited. With procurement, it can be mentioned because procurement is the department that actually needs to keep track of it, and it's sometimes either evaluated or even compensated on the amount of spend. So it can be important there. And then once you get to your contact, it's very limited, because if you're selling industrial carpet and you're talking to the operations manager, it's all about your product or service at that point.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. So that's something to just be mindful of, and it's something that suppliers kind of learn as they're navigating as a diverse supplier. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Mark Budwig from S-Mark Graphics. I earlier this week was on my mybusinessmatches.com, getting 5 matches, and each of those companies I requested a time to meet, and I have not heard back from any of them. What's the time frame?
If you can, we're still doing matches. If you can email me offline, and we'll just connect. There's unfortunately, some of the buyers haven't confirmed all of their meetings yet.
Okay.
So I don't know offhand what's kind of going on in your particular situation, but if anyone is having any issues with getting meetings confirmed or not hearing back, just email me, and we'll connect you with My Business Matches or see how they can be resolved.
Yeah. What's your email address?
Yeah, this is Stan Kimmer. I also have been working with the woman there because I had the same issue where, I made some requests like on the first day, and they just sat there for 3 weeks, and I was hoping they'd either accept or decline, because that could open you up for, trying other matches. Again, it opened up for everyone. It opened up to, you can do more than 5 as of yesterday, but when you're kind of sitting there in limbo, there needs to be a process where they can either say yes or no pretty quickly.
Yes, this is Diane.
Phil, I know.
Same thing.
Phil, I know as a supplier, typically sometimes it came down to just a few days before, and everything sort of shook out, because I think what happens is, you could verify this, is getting all of the corporate members to get lined up is very difficult. So I know some years it came down to just a few days before, and then it magically just started happening on our end. And,
I'm happy to get any matchmakers, even if they're at the last minute.
Right. Yeah. Right. So we're, moving forward with pushing them to make those final choices. Unfortunately, sometimes some people don't confirm their meeting until later. So our control over that is limited in the sense that, we've kind of put those messages out, and we're working pretty hard to get all those meetings, either accepted or not accepted, so and have peace of mind. But I certainly understand that the frustration, because you want to be, prepared for what meetings you do have.
Just as a, maybe for next year or, in future years, this is Mark Morales at Charles Jacobson again. Our issue was entirely different. We got certified. We registered for the different hotel chains and NBC Universal, but we were never matched with any of the companies that we were already, had done that work with. And so we had to make all of our matches outside the system. And we were able to get Michelle to throw Hilton in there, and then we confirmed that meeting. But we actually have 4 meetings, but only one of them was done through the system, and only because I called to have them at it. So we were never matched with the companies we actually sell to, and that may be on their side that they're not putting in enough information. But if I've got an email from the person saying I'm going to meet with them, then they should find a way that they could put that in there so I can put it into the calendar. Because for me, I've got 19 people that I don't need to meet with because I don't sell to those kinds of companies, and the 5 I needed to, even though I was already registered, I couldn't match with in the system.
It's entirely up to that does sound a little strange. It's entirely up to the buyers what they, because you put in your your codes and capabilities, and they select which ones they are interested in meeting with. So it's entirely up to them. But if you're having those kinds of difficulties where you feel like things are way off, we can always work with you one-on-one to make sure that everything's functioning.
Great.
And Michelle's been very helpful.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, they're really great. We're always here as a resource for you. The system's great, but we obviously want to give you that personal support as well.
I have another question on the second tier. So
yes.
For those of you that are buying and you're the officers there, if your first tier people are not diverse, then are you directing them to look for diverse second tier? How does that work?
Go ahead.
Oh, so I can speak kind of broadly on the way that supplier diversity is moving. Is that the corporate partners who have supplier diversity programs are increasingly asking their tier 1 suppliers, whether diverse or not, to report their own diverse spend, and counting it towards, so that they can count it towards their own diverse spend, and so that they can encourage their suppliers to move the ball forward in terms of that commitment to diversity. It just really varies from company to company. But increasingly, the answer is yes.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to my statement about the 3 different with Toyota, our TEMA affiliate, our manufacturing affiliate, is actually striving for 100% of their suppliers to actually implement a Tier 2 diverse program. Now it's still in the initial phase, but that's the ask of their suppliers. TMS is not that far down the road, and TFS, my organization, is just starting. So we're just trying to get a benchmark of where we are. But with TEMA, that is a move forward. The ask is their suppliers to have a Tier 2 diverse program in place.
Fantastic, yeah, and it's really important to open up those opportunities more and more, as I'm sure everyone knows. It's important for, as a growth strategy, becoming a Tier 2 supplier to a major corporation could open up an opportunity to be a prime for them later on. And so it's definitely an area that we're expanding on in terms of our resources. And I think our corporate partners overall are developing more of a commitment to it.
This is Matt Corin. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Matt Corin. I'm with Klongren Consulting. Actually, Ellis, I'll be meeting with Toyota Financial Services come the Matchmaker meeting, so I'm excited about that. And
yes, you will. I'm looking at your name right now.
Wonderful. Thank you for getting on the phone.
Do your story check.
Some insights. Thank you for being here today. My question is, a lot of us are developing relationships with people such as yourself who do take the time to come to conferences and do take the time to create things like the Toyota Opportunity Exchange, but oftentimes we're not face-to-face with you or able to develop those relationships face-to-face. So my question is, what do you see as the most effective ways to continue to develop or touch base with our relationship throughout the year?
I'll give you an example. Blue Wave, they're a IT consulting resource firm. I'm taking over for Diana Porter, who used to do this role previously. Met them last year, I believe, in Dallas. And just kept building a relationship with them. And to what Sam stated early, periodically checked in just to see how things were going. Diana passed Blue Wave on to me. just start building a closer relationship.
Was that an email periodically, or was that a phone call, or was that?
It was an email, then it was a phone call that led to lunch, that's one of the success stories I was talking about. After lunch, really gave me a good understanding of their capabilities. I then contacted our Tier 1 resource supplier, and now they just signed a contract with them. So they'll be doing some Tier 2 work with them. But it was emails and then phone calls. And then if there's a connection. Most times, at least I can speak for myself, you're going to follow up because we have goals to make as well. And we want to be successful as well as much as we want our companies to be successful and your company to be successful. So email's the way it started. Phone call, a lunch. I was out in California. I'm really stationed in Baltimore, Maryland. A lunch, and then from there it was a business connect that was successful for Blue Wave. So that's the way I would.
Ellis, one of our success stories started with the Matchmakers meeting, and it was a 2-year process. And after 2 years and 3 months, it finally happened. And I think it can take that long, and just being patient and hanging in there.
No, you're exactly right. I will be giving a presentation at WeBank West, the Women's Business Enterprise Group. And part of the presentation is a PowerPoint presentation and talks about how to do business with Toyota. But the other part of the presentation is really testimonials from suppliers who went through the process. And to your point, sometimes it takes a long time. But once you get in, particularly with Toyota, it is a very, very good experience. And that's part of what we want folks to know. May not happen the first time, may not happen the second time. But if you keep persevering, it can happen. And when it does happen, it's a very good experience.
Excellent, thank you.
And it's always, and like I said earlier, it's always a good idea to just ask, because for each company it's going to be different. So just ask what their preferences for following up. Does anyone else have any additional questions?
Phil, what is your last name?
My last name is Giorgiani.
Okay, I got your email from the website.
Yes.
Great.
So if anyone else has any questions about the Matchmakers in terms of, the logistics, I know that some are still being finalized. You can just let our team know, but it should be handled very shortly. And thank you for participating, and we are really excited about the conference in general. We're sold out, and about the Matchmakers in particular, and it's really great to join the call and be equipped for your meetings. So if you have any other questions, let me know. Thank you to Sam and Ellis for being here today, and I'll see you all in Las Vegas.